so I had been doing a couple of these, you know, let's just call my folder, my computer is called silly videos. So I've been doing these silly videos for a while, and they'd been getting some traction, and I'd already um done a few things with Snoop Dogg, and um so I was already sort of taking a couple of steps into this celebrity world. But it was really cool. It was like just got like an Instagram DM one day just saying, "Dude, you want to come to this creative meeting at Will Smith's house?" Which I was obviously like, "Of course I do."
Nah,
Um,
I'm actually going to Chipotle that
yeah,
day.
I'm sorry, I'm busy. But yeah, it just ended up at this sort of roundtable situation with he has a little video company, and they do lots of things. It's sort of like a little social media agency, and they do stuff for other celebrities and for him. But they were doing this sort of start of the year meeting. I guess it was start of this year, to sort of brainstorm what they're going to do on Will's Instagram. Um, and they basically wanted he was basically like, give me ideas. But it was one of those meetings that just sort of it started to sort of we didn't get down to talking about the ideas. I feel like we sort of like talked about everything else, and I was sitting there with my sketchbook ready to sort of like deliver some ideas, and Will was actually sitting right beside me, and he was sort of watching. I was sketching, and like a couple of times while other people were talking, he just like tapped my sketchbook and he was like, "That's cool, man." I'm like, "Thanks." And I was like, "I want to do this one with you." And like, just sort of got, I got to sort of like um, build up a little bit of confidence with him. He
Yeah.
obviously understood like, all right, this guy does whatever because I can see his little pictures there. Um, but at some point we just ran out of time. So Will's like, "Guys, thank you so much for coming. Um, uh, I'm gonna leave it there, and let's make some cool shit this year." And everyone was like, "All right, see you later." And I was like, "Oh, but I want to make something." So I just went. So it just came out of my mouth. I didn't even think about it. It was just 5 minutes, and he's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, just can you just give me 5 minutes?" And where we were sitting, we're looking out onto his garden. I just pointed at a tree just outside the window, and I was like, "Let's go over there and just give me 5 minutes." And all his like people are like, you don't, you need to,
You can't handle Will Smith like that,
yeah,
bro. What are you
yeah, you
doing?
do. You're supposed to, there's a way to talk to Will Smith. You don't just shout 5 minutes at his face. Um, and I was just like, sort of just, I was just suddenly realizing that maybe I won't get the opportunity to do this. And I was sort of, barely slept the night before, so I was all like sort of excited and sort of like mentally preparing for it. But he just glanced over to like one of his guys, and it was sort of a no words glance that sort of basically said, and the guy was like, "Okay," and like, but just with his eyes. And then he was like, "Okay," and then everyone wandered out. Like 40 people just walked out into his giant garden that actually has like a lake and pedalos on it, and like just this super impressive um, garden and whole outdoor situation. But yeah, so I mean, the idea was based on this little flick video where you flick somebody and they fly into the distance, but then it's also coupled with this loop. So it's a perpetual loop of running towards camera, flick, hit the tree in the background, and then run again, and then the loop starts again. But
It's the
I'd done
first
it so
video
many
of yours
times.
I ever saw. Actually, was that Will Smith flick video? I can't believe there's an origin story. Because when I saw it,
Yeah,
and I knew you're from Northern Ireland, a few guys said that to me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, this is probably like his 40th video that he's done with Will. This is just the way it is." But like to hear
yeah.
that was like the all or nothing moment is like so fun to hear.
Driving away in the car, I was just like, I've got on my phone right now. I've got all the footage need to make a Will Smith video, and I was just like, I couldn't wait to get home and just like put it on my computer and just start messing with it. It was kind of an amazing experience, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
You
yeah,
know,
look, thanks for jumping in. We are back on our mini series with NI Connections today, where we're interviewing some incredible people like Pete here from Northern Ireland who are living overseas. Pete, you're LA, aren't you? I mean, you would have to be with all those big dogs, those big Snoop
oh
dogs.
yeah, Los Angeles, and you can sort of like it's nice and sunny right now. It's yeah, near and glorious Los Angeles.
Unbelievable. So yeah, if you haven't heard, an episode in this series before, you're new to the show, we're all about celebrating local people. This series is all about people who live overseas, and we have done, I mean, it's probably about 30 episodes with NI Connections so far. So if you're itching to travel, if you're thinking about getting out there and exploring a new career opportunity, highly recommend going to niconnections.com. We can find out the rest of the episodes in this series. Pete, as you've already heard today, Peter Quinn, the one and only filmmaker, storyteller, visual effects artist, silly video maker, I think is the label you used earlier on, which I quite like. And as
That's what I go with.
Open a Story shows, with some really, really cool cats from all over the place. So, Pete, I'm really excited to explore a whole bunch of different topics today. Thanks for giving us your time. And I guess where I'd like to pick up from is exactly where you left off, your phone, right? So when I see a video like that, I just assumed, especially with your background, that you'd be filming with like, I don't know, some sort of like 10K black magic, super duper, uber duper, like mad camera. You filmed that on your phone.
So I'll give you so I come from like most recently, last probably about 5 years, I've been doing, making ads and making content for branded content for different companies, right? Like, so I'm doing stuff for Instagrams for companies. And what people have learned over the past, people in my position have learned over the past, number of years is that the content that looks authentic and homegrown and as if you could film it on your phone is the stuff that actually gets the numbers. Versus if I was to make the same video on a fancy camera, 4K, 8K, whatever, versus the same video on a phone, basically, for some annoying reason, the one that looks more homegrown is the one that performs. And performs means, getting the figures, getting the numbers, the views, the shares, whatever. It's kind of because, I always picture like guy or girl on Instagram, they're just scrolling through. They kind of want to see who they follow. They want to see their friends and whatever. Yeah. And something arrives in your feed that looks polished or fancy. It's immediately dismissible as an ad or something from a company that, like, go away. I don't want to see this.
Interesting.
So, that's really true of ads and also just sort of, organic content that you're making for companies. You wanna not, at least for a few seconds, you wanna not disclose or not just give it away that it's an ad or sponsored content. And I have found in that world that using your phone to make, even if it's a product video or whatever, or somebody head and shoulders talking to camera about their product, people are going to stick with that for just a few seconds longer versus the polished stuff. So
it's really interesting. And I think especially in a world where, the decisions about the content that you watch are literally made with a micro flick of a thumb. And people, we do it as well. Like, you make the decision in, like, I don't know, I'm sure someone's researched it. It feels like 0.3 seconds. So the fact that you're even telling me that the quality of the video itself, in terms of resolution or whatever, is actually one of those factors that will make people stay that extra 1.5 seconds, which may be enough time for them to see the hook of your video or whatever it is, which will then maybe engage them to watch, the 30 seconds or whatever it is. Yep. It's mind blowing to me because, someone like you've a lot of experience. You've worked on big projects, you've worked on long projects, and you're putting this, like, probably more brain power and creativity into maybe a 7 to 15 second video than maybe you did into like something that took like 30 minutes or an hour or longer. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah. That everything's about immediacy.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that, like, there's so much effort being put into such a short amount of time. And it's all just like, it's like racing to the bottom of your dopamine structure or something. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, we call it thumb stopping. So is this thumb stopping?
Thumb stopping! Wow.
Yep. So if you think about, I'm trying to be not specific, but if you think about if I'm trying to make an advert that says, like basically what the ad wants is for you to click on the thing or follow the person or subscribe or whatever an ad wants. It can be a few things, but generally the formula involves it used to be like a short, like 3 or 4 second intro, like something thumb stopping. So something crazy happens, and you would hope that inspires somebody to watch for longer. But no, I feel like it's 2 seconds, and TikTok is even faster.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're not, it's sort of the audience is a younger audience, and um, yeah, just for some reason the stats on that are just even faster. I feel like it's like inside 1 second, you have to be like, what is it? What's the payoff here? Like,
Wow.
so people have started to make videos. So say historically, I would usually be making like, call it like a TV ad that runs for 30
Mhm.
seconds and builds up to a moment, right? For argument's sake, like, let's just say that moment is a head explodes, like for argument's sake. So um, the character is doing something and then works up to whatever thing happens and his head explodes, But now everything has to be edited in such a way that immediately the head explodes. Then you sort of
Mm.
backtrack, fill in the story, and then the head explodes again, if that makes sense. You have to start with the thing so that somebody's like,
You,
it's kind of like, do you know how they do on like American TV shows where like at the end of the thing, there's adverts every 1 minute, it feels like. Then at the end, it's sort of, it might be just Gordon Ramsay or something, but it'll cut to an ad, but it'll show you a little clip of like him like going crazy. Um,
mm.
so then you're like, oh shit, I have to watch this advert to see why he went crazy. Then you have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
wait for
yeah.
like full 15 minutes and then you see the result. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes they'll tease that
So
crazy moment throughout the whole
so
set
the
of ads
hook
or
is
whatever.
the hook is actually the payoff. Then is what you're saying. Sorry for talking over you. It's the
Yeah.
joys of remote recording. That's just the way it is, isn't it? Um, so you're giving people the payoff, and then the hook actually becomes, I wonder what caused that payoff, which is radically
Yep.
different to, I guess, more of like a suspense operated form of content, which we've
Hmm.
operated to, well, but really up until this point, I suppose. It's all about creating that
It's
tension, whereas now the
it's
tension comes from
getting
the payoff itself.
Yeah, it's people have no attention anymore. It's you just have to give them like, give me what I want and let me scroll on to the next thing. Just what is it, and then bye. So if you can make stuff that is sort of designed for that ADD audience, then you're
Mm.
starting to get somewhere. So what I'm suggesting here is that works for the ad creation world and the content creation world for brands, but it also works when I want to make one of my silly videos. So
It's
I'm trying
interesting.
to
The silly
layer in,
videos
yeah,
contain all the wisdom. It's like it's a fun playground where you can actually conceptually build out some really robust ideas that work everywhere. More
yeah,
part of the silly videos. Very cool.
yeah, totally. And that's so to it's a long-winded way of answering your question. That's why you shoot on a phone. Like, so it just has it has the feeling of like, all right, some guy made this.
Mm.
Like it doesn't have a feeling of like this was a production company. Um,
Yeah.
and it's weird that like when you work um with production companies now, like they're shooting stuff lo-fi too. I mean, there's always a place for like hi-fi stuff, and like there's always a place for you know nicely produced stuff, of course. But for for social media, it's just super common now that it's going to be shot on a phone. Um,
Very
but yeah,
interesting.
also using the other editing and um, just keep the brevity of uh, designing like edits and videos so that people with no attention span can still you know take it in is basically the
Yeah.
trick, I think.
Awesome, mate. So let's go back then. Like, where were you born and bred? Where was home for you?
Uh, I grew up in Carryduff. Um,
Nice.
so what's that, southeast Belfast? Um,
Yeah, I mean, no one knows where Carryduff is.
no,
I didn't even think it
no,
was
we're
in Belfast, to be honest with you.
it's. I think it wants to be a part. I think at some point it was incorporated and it's part of Belfast. I think. Um,
It's like
But
beyond Forest Side, where I don't know when's the last time you were home, but like Let's Go Hydro area, that's Carryduff, isn't it?
oh yeah. What's Let's Go Hydro?
Let's Go
Is that what you
Hydro
said?
is like this mad lake that an entrepreneur called Pete Boyle bought for like, I think his kids were really into kayaking, and he kind of bought it to run like a local
Yeah.
kayak club in it. And then he's like just like entrepreneurial to the bone that he just couldn't. He kept looking at this lake and he couldn't get business out of his head, so he's kind of turned it into this big, massive outdoor inflatable park. And then
I
he added
saw
glamping
pictures of
paws,
that. Yeah,
and then he added
in the
Pizza
Cardiff
Huts,
Reservoir.
and then he's added this and this and this. The Carryduff Reservoir. It is Carryduff. There you go.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah. It's right opposite the Ivanhoe. Um, that's nuts. Yeah, I saw photos of that a couple of years ago. I haven't been back in. I mean, it's pre-COVID, like I don't know, 4 years, 2018, I think, for a wedding. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's been a while. I have to go back soon. My brother had a kid. It's a whole thing. I have to go and see the baby.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah,
show the uncle up, don't you? You gotta do it, man. So,
exactly.
like, what
Yeah.
was it like running around Cardiff as a lad?
Well, as a young lad, I mean, Cardiff is great to grow up in. I think it's like there's a lot of open space and a lot of uh, you know, parks and I don't know. I'm trying to avoid saying lots of places to go and like drink cider when we were growing up. Um, but it's like it's a suburb, I guess, and for whatever reason, there's lots of people our age, lots of kids growing up, and around the neighborhood. So they're like BMXs and skateboards and all that fun 80s stuff that I don't know. Do kids do that stuff anymore?
I don't know. Only
You
in
know?
Stranger Things, I think. Maybe like all the kids now that like watch Stranger Things, they're like trying to do it now, like fly around Carryduff again. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe we've
I
gone
hope
full
so.
circle.
Yeah, I hope so because I'm always uh like my sister has a couple of kids that are I don't know 10, 11, 12, 13 maybe and I feel like kids nowadays just iPads and phones and like video games and whatever. I always feel like that kind of stuff is such a shame because when we were kids,
Mm,
me and my brothers, my dad was an art teacher, so we were entertained with. My dad would bring home like art supplies
awesome.
and big sheets of paper and like here's a bunch of crayons and like go nuts. So I feel like the idea of uh, okay, you're bored, you make something is
Yeah.
sort of ingrained there, I guess. Um,
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Like I feel a real tension because like I am a creator by nature. I'm now a creator by trade. I love content. Like I love it. And like fair play, I've been doing audio for the last 5 years, so I'm not in your space at all. But I said to you before, we're starting to add video, and I'm thinking about bringing a young guy alongside me, and he's gonna sort TikTok and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I love this. I love the metrics. I love the fun. I love the problem solving of it. I love the expression of it. But then I'm also like, man, I want kids to BMX. Do you know what I mean? I almost feel like a teetotal
yeah,
bartender. Does that make any sense?
yeah, yeah. You wanna be in it, but also yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah, a teetotal bartender. Yeah, yeah. Like you want the creative aspect. Like it bugs me. This is sort of a side point, but it bugs me that when I grew up, um, like if you grew up in the '80s, you grew up with like uh like the Goonies and Indiana Jones and I guess other Spielberg stuff, which is sort of like adventure inspiring. It's
Yeah.
sort of like it makes you want Back to the Future. It makes you want to go and grab a skateboard and go outside, right?
Yeah.
Um, basically anything with John Williams music seems to have some kind of like inspirational, like go do stuff or like the Goonies is brilliant because like it's really important and similar to Stranger Things actually specifically season one. Um, it sort of is it empowers the kid. They're the group of protagonists and they go out on this
Yeah.
adventure to sort of and all the adults are sort of goofy or stupid for some reason, but the kids are like the ones that are going to go save the day and
Well,
have
because
the
that's how
adventure.
you feel whenever you're 8 years old. Like you feel like everyone
Yeah,
knows absolutely nothing, and you are the
yeah,
dog.
yeah. But uh, I feel really sorry for kids nowadays because what they have is stunning, wonderful, um, like Avengers, and I don't know, just watched Black Adam the other day, had to turn it off. And just this stuff that looks amazing is the pinnacle of VFX, but it's just so boring because it just starts with just maximum 100%
Mm.
awesome VFX and just doesn't let up the whole time. So
Yeah.
that just is so boring. And kids are probably watching it, half watching it and half on their phone and whatever. And just, I feel sorry for them because I don't know where I'm going with this, but like, that sort of like awe that you watch like the Goonies with for the first time when you're 8 years old,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and or Back to the Future, like those that stuff had my full attention. There was no like
Mm.
you know boringness about it, or like ET or something like this stuff that is like you're just like literally wowed by storytelling, and it's not polluted with all this like way overdone VFX stuff. And
So that's super interesting. You've kind of put words to something that I've been feeling recently. I was chatting to a guy in here. If I turn the camera around, I won't because it took me too long to set it up where it was because it's like the first remote video that I've done. So I'm like, is everything working? I was like trying to figure out how to connect a GoPro to a flipping computer. There's loads of guys in here, content creators, few YouTubers, few TikTokers. And so, we're always kind of like looking at stuff. Like, what do you think of this guy's intro? Like, what do you think about that? Like, da 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 da, like talking shop a bit. And I said to him, I was like, do you know what, Matthew? Like, gonna be honest, like, I'm really burnt out with Mr. Beast content. And he goes, mate, me too. He's like, why do you think that is? Because we've been like, Mr. Beast has been doing all the rounds on the podcast. Like, he did Rogan a while ago, and like, we listened to like 3 hours off him, and it's really, really fascinating to hear his story. And I have the utmost respect for the guy. But the content, I just kind of like, I don't know, I feel just kind of like tired watching it. Like physically,
yeah,
I feel like the dopamine circuits in my brain are almost like burnt out. And when you
yeah,
were talking about the Marvel movie there, I was like, I think I now know why, because it's just spectacle. It's
yeah,
spectacle, spectacle, spectacle. And it's like, oh, your attention's waning quickly? More spectacle. And it's
yeah,
like, oh, no, 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 quick, quick, quick. More spectacle. Whereas if
yeah.
you take something like, I don't know why, this is a really niche movie. It's not that niche, but you ever watch a movie, Super 8? I watched it when I
Oh
was maybe
yeah,
like
yeah,
16. I don't know if it
yeah.
was
But it's a
Ridley
few years
Scott.
old now. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of like it. I think because we were talking about Stranger Things, my mind kind of went back to it. It's like a real slow burn movie, and like
Yeah.
there's I don't know why I picked that example, but it's like it's about these kids and they're just in this really boring little town, and then like nothing really happens for the first 20 minutes, and then there's a train
Yeah.
crash. And then there's aliens, and you're like, whoa! Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like that slow build up, and you get really
Yeah.
invested in the story. So I wonder if there's some sort of philosophical content or discussions to be had about spectacle versus story, like
Well, I mean, I think
engaging
it's
people
simple.
through story instead of spectacle.
Yeah. I mean, just I feel like you need a bit of a roller coaster. You need ups and downs, hills and valleys, peaks and whatever. Um, you know, in order for um, in order for a peak to feel like a peak, you have to have a valley, if that makes sense. So you have to bring it down and make it chill in order for the big thing, the explosion, the head exploding, whatever it is. You have to bring it up and down in order for it to feel like there is ups and downs. But if you're just like I just said, like I just turned off Black Adam. Like I'm not really interested in that stuff, but I'm interested in see, what's going on with like a
Yeah, of course.
VFX. There's a cat. There's a cat here now. Um, um, but it really does. It starts with like a big battle scene. So it's like punch, punch, explosion, like particle effects. Like, okay, we're in space now. What? Um, like just things like flying around, like immediately. Um, and it really just doesn't add up. It stops a few times for like a heroic one-liner, for The Rock to deliver something, and like but then it's just back into it. I ended up just sort of like pressing next for like 10 seconds, 10 seconds, and just like skipping
Yeah,
forward, just waiting for like. So I bailed from it. I was like, okay, I get it.
it's
But
really interesting.
yeah, like like there's no downtime. to to sort of juxtapose the crazy stuff. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know
So
exactly what you're saying. I was chatting to a guy recently. No tell lie, I was producing a podcast for somebody else, and they had him on the show. And he's a psychologist therapist from Dublin, and he used to play in a band for Riverdance,
right.
and he said that like Riverdance would go on tour, and his job was to play really low energy dirge type music to bring
Mm,
the energy down in between dancing sets. So that was
right.
literally his job, was to pull the energy down in the room. And he was saying they would play like really sad
Yeah.
Irish music. So then whenever the dancers came back on, it was like, whoa, this is so cool. And
Yeah.
you're right. I think like that lull is really important. Is it the same in life? Sorry for the hard pivot, but do you think that
Well,
like you need those downers, whether it's I don't want to say tragedy in life, set that to one side because I think that can be part of it, but like slower seasons, quieter seasons, times where I heard an old woman say recently, just a stirring the porridge sort of kind of days where you're just not really doing much. You're
yeah.
not
Well, I
hanging
mean,
out with Snoop Dogg, you're not seeing Will Smith. It's just kind of a little more
yeah. Well, you can't be, I guess it's the same with just being creative. I always feel like I have like a few peaks in the year. It might not be just, I mean, some people might say I'm most creative at 2 p.m., or like I'm most creative when I first wake up, and that's where I have all my ideas. But I feel like I would have, if you think about like a full year, I would sort of ebb and flow. Like sometimes I would just be like in it. This cat is like right in front of me. Um, I would be just churning things out, you know, once a day, a couple times a week or whatever, and then I'll just like go for weeks or months where I'm just like, I'm just sort of like on like a little, not a downtime because I'm always making something, but like
sure.
I feel like it comes and goes. Like there's like a seasonal almost rhythm to it where you just
Yeah.
sort of like, you know, you make one thing and then that leads to another thing, and like, um, so um, I have like just sort of learned to embrace it. So I know when I'm in like one of those zones that might last like a few weeks, I'll just like go for it. And I've just sort of
Love
learned
that.
that I do that. Like like took me years to figure that out, but like basically when I'm in the zone, I'm like, "Pachoo, pachoo, pachoo," like just like making stuff all along.
So you make hay
So yeah,
when the sun shines. Like you, when you're
perfectly
feeling
put.
it, you lean into it. You're like, "All right, baby, let's go.
Totally.
I'm writing
Yeah.
10 chapters today, boy."
Yeah. So yeah, whatever it is, I'm just like I guess I lean into it, but um and that's a luxury I have with my own stuff where I can, say yes to a project or um and sometimes it just happens like if I take on like too big a project, which I've done a couple of times this year, like did this one thing for Netflix, it's actually for Stranger Things. It was just it was a pretty hard going project, and it was only for about a couple of weeks, and just I was just thinking when this is done, I'm just not going to do anything for a couple of weeks, and um, so I can give myself a break and just like
Yeah.
do nothing. Um,
So
so there's
let
always
me
like a
ask you
feeling that
this.
you,
Sorry, this remote kills me, man, honestly. I remember, like, it used to be even worse whenever you would use Zoom or something at the start of the pandemic, especially whenever, like, you didn't really have your remote conversation etiquette built in properly, and I've clearly lost all of mine, man. So apologies.
no,
I
you're good.
just wanted to ask, how do you make money? Tell me about that, because I think that's interesting.
So I've got a full-time job, um, and that's sort of the backbone of where to get income. Um, but I like evenings and weekends. Basically, I'm like working on my own stuff. So I guess I do have a little side business. My business is called Peter Quinn Industries, and it's just sort of ongoing like little jobs here and there.
Yep.
Um, and that includes the stuff with like celebrities and whatever. So, I mean, because it's LA, like you only really need to know a few people, and you'll just sort of get like I don't even have to go fishing for work. You just sort of like every once in a while. Like just last week, I ended up doing like a job for Netflix. Took me a day. I think I did it just in on Saturday. Um, and um, you know, you make a couple of grand for just knocking something out and being fast.
Absolutely.
Because for those guys, it's faster for them to go to me, who's just like guy at computer. Um, so I'll be like, yeah, when you need it, like I'll give it to you by 5 o'clock.
Epic.
Um, and so I've got quite a few of those wee things that sort of pop up now and again. But the I mean, the most fun stuff is when I get like a good, like meaty project for you know something like Snoop Dogg or whatever. He's
Yeah.
always making stuff, and he's always having wee ideas about something. And so quite a few times this year, I'll get like usually an Instagram DM, and he's like, "Yo, can you do can you do something that's blah blah blah?" And he'll sort of like outline a little idea, and I'll be like, "Yeah, sure. Give me a call tomorrow, and we'll like explain it to me." So that has happened like a few times this year, and you don't want to half-ass those jobs. So I'll sort of give him a quote like for whatever it is, depends on the job, but like something that I know I think an amount of money that gives me a good few weeks to do a good job for him.
Totally.
So those jobs have been like my favorite ones where
That's awesome.
and he's so trusting as well where it's like whatever I think, like I'm not going to send him something and he's going to give me notes back. It's just like cool, I'm into it. So because of that, I'm really careful, I'm really precise, and I make sure all of those
Yeah.
jobs for him are done really well.
Yeah, you don't have the
Um,
luxury of like, oh, I'm gonna do like a half-ass first draft because I know I'm gonna have to kind of redraft it anyway. It's like, no, no,
yeah,
no, I gotta do a Will Smith one take here and just make it
yeah,
work.
yeah. The first job I did for Snoop after he pulled me in after his first Instagram DM, I mean I literally couldn't believe it. Like I'm making a Snoop Dogg video, like and
You're
just
like, bro, this is definitely some sort of
yeah,
elaborate Nigerian prince scam. Like,
yeah.
this can't
What's
be
going on?
Is it a fake blue tick? It's gotta be a fake
Yeah,
blue tick.
yeah. I just couldn't believe it was happening. But and actually, when I did get that message from one of his people, I did like try to make sure it was legit because like yeah, that doesn't happen every day.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, just to be like, I'm not over this in terms of like I'm not like like, oh, I do this all the time, make Snoop Dogg. Like every time it happens, I'm like, I'm literally making a video for Snoop Dogg or whatever it is. Um,
D-O
and
double G, man. Hero.
yeah, I mean, I'm always like kind of blown away that I've literally making a folder on my computer called Snoop Dogg, whatever. And like, I've got another Snoop Dogg folder on my computer and I'm going to go film something. Um, and anyway, those sorts of things are my favorite way to make money, obviously. Like, it's the most sort of um, like I feel most sort of trusted as like, all right, you're a creative guy, just do your thing, and I will give you money for it.
Yeah.
Versus like working for an agency or a brand where you get notes and they sort of want to change your idea into something that's going to sell more stuff or whatever,
Yeah.
which is fine. I'm happy with that. That's sort of normal,
Sure.
but can't be doing a Snoop Dogg video to pay your mortgage, you know?
Especially not in LA. Tell us
Mm.
what brought you to LA. Give us that story.
Well, so I'd had a few jobs in Belfast, in different agencies. One called Navigator Blue over beside Ormo Baths, above where the
Mate,
Limelight is.
I'm sitting exactly where the diving board used to be in the Omobath swimming pool. This is where I am, literally the co-working space.
What?
Yeah, dude.
That's where you guys. Oh, what?
Navigator Blue is behind that wall. Like, genuinely, if I punched through that wall, I would fall into Navigator Blue.
That is bonkers. Yeah, so that was my first agency job right out of college. So I went to art college and did all um, whatever you did at art college, and then just like right out of like day one, just like, hey, I saw your at that time I was making I had this like stupid little photo gallery, faces in strange places, where like buildings or a car or random stuff looks like faces. And somebody senior there had saw this little thing I put up.
Awesome.
I was like, come in, and then I just had a job, like a pretty good job, like on day one.
Love that.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever worked in agencies, but it's pretty stressful and it's pretty. Yeah, you basically have to learn to be fast and good. And
It's kind of
uh,
like what like journalism does to writers. I feel like agency does to creatives. If that makes sense.
mhm. There's a useful portion of it, definitely. It's sort of like some sort of like almost like military SEAL training in terms of like making sure like stuff, and like um you know all your tools, but then also you have to get good at like what idea is going to pass here, uh, what level of polish I need in order for something to get approved, and like the client likes it and the boss likes it and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then I did that for about 5 years, and then I went over to White Noise. It's over in Airport Road West,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I was out there like a more of like a design agency, which is really cool. And that was good because I got to sort of stretch my legs more creatively, and the, the two bosses over there were really cool, and just sort of after a few years of like proving myself, they were just like, all right, just mostly was sort of left to my own devices, and sort of um, yeah, just made cool stuff, and um, that was a great job. Just learning my own sort of what my own brand is, if that makes sense. But yeah, at some point I was like, I want to like do something else, and there's not that many agencies, or there's more now. Um, but at the time, I think it was 2011 when I was leaving. I was looking for something else, and I just couldn't find something that was like I wanted to do more animation and more, maybe even more TV stuff. And it was a very short list of who to reach out to, and uh, I didn't have that much experience. I made a few TV ads, and I made a few web videos and like this sort of stuff. So um, eventually, we ended up looking at Vancouver, and on a just a random sort of like little spell just on the internet, just like contacting a few people, I ended up like basically accepting a job in Vancouver. And just for some reason, like me and my now wife are like, but we're just like, are we actually just going to like sell our cars, stop renting this house, do whatever, and just move to Vancouver? And yeah, it felt like such a crazy move, but we just did it, and went over and worked in sort of an equally stressful video production agency. So it was like probably even more stressful.
Yeah. Under
But
the fire, under the frying pan, or the other way
yeah,
around.
and starting to get like, it was really exciting to work on like bigger sort of North American clients, like Staples and Microsoft, and um, uh, I don't know, people you would have heard of, like tech companies. So like that was really exciting to just like work on, but versus like nothing wrong with doing videos for like Belfast City Council and whatever. But
Sure, but
I
it,
started
it,
to
it
feel like
feels different. Yeah.
it started to feel like, oh, I'm like out in North America doing like a Microsoft video or whatever. So that felt really cool. But eventually, I sort of had the same feeling in Vancouver. Vancouver's actually pretty small, and there's not tons going on. They have a lot of like movie VFX stuff, but that's not my. I'm not good enough in that whole VFX world to get into that. But there's plenty of that stuff. Um, but yeah, I took one road trip to California, um, with me and my wife just driving around California, and she was like, "I really want to live here. Sunny, palm trees, beach, everything, and everything that like Los Angeles and you know broader California has to offer was just very enticing." So took a while, but ended up moving down here. To get all the visa and everything sorted was quite a headache, but we got it done, and now we're here.
Incredible,
Mm-hmm.
man. So, how long have you been in LA for?
been here for 5 years, and I was at uh, been working in house. I was eventually got a job offer from Dollar Shave Club, the razor company.
Awesome, yeah.
Don't know if you know them.
Very cool.
So I went there, and they took care of everything. They took care of the visa for
Oh,
both me and
bro,
my
that
wife,
is
and like,
how you do it. Come on.
yeah, I feel like at the time they were just exploding, and I think things are, well, they're different now economy wise, but like, just whatever it costs, like all the companies were just like hiring all the. It was 2011, no, when was it? 2015, um, 2016, and just all the startups were just exploding. I mean, they're still all doing well, but it's just a bit quieter now with the looming recession. But um, it was just money's no object, just whatever it costs. They have legal people on retainer, just like, give me your name and address, and we'll put you in the list. And
Awesome.
like they just took care of everything. It was like literally life changing. Like,
Smashing.
because it would cost, I don't know, 50 grand more to to do all that legal process, and like,
Did you get a green
get all the
card,
paperwork done.
or what was the story?
I did eventually. Yeah, yeah. They paid for
Yeah,
that
mate,
too.
green cards are no joke, man. Like I lived in the States for 3 years on like a wee B1 visa. It cost nothing. It was like a I guess like a work tourism visa or like a volunteer
Mm,
visa.
yep.
And I had to go and do the interviews in Stranmillis, where apparently there's a US consulate. Had no idea until you're standing there,
Wow.
like looking at a picture of Obama. But even that was like that was serious stuff. Like visas are no joke, but there's
Oh
ways
yeah.
to do it, and there's been plenty of people from the island of Ireland who have found ways to do it over the last 100 years. So sure.
Oh,
Have you
absolutely.
do you know any other Northern Irish people over there, or have you ever met anyone from like
Funny.
I don't know County Armagh in the wild?
So about 2 minutes before we started this podcast, my mate Johnny just came around and dropped off his bike, and he's from Ballymena. Um, and one of the guys we hang around with is another guy called Scott, and I think he's from Downpatrick. And
Epic.
who else is there? But just, it is weird. Like, all the people who have emigrated, they find a way to, you know, congregate, and like, we've had many's like a boozy night here in our house with all random Irish people. We just had a bunch of Irish people come over. Our friends Gary and Davini came over, and they brought us all, like, Tato and pita bread, and
Oh yeah.
like all the Irish treats, soda bread and everything. Like, um, so yeah, we don't feel too far from home when you've got those people around you.
Yeah. Does LA do the whole like Irish pub thing, or is that an East Coast? I've never been West Coast. I've only ever been and lived in East Coast.
Do you know they? I haven't been, but uh, my friend Scott was telling me that he was at one of those things, like, with the other Irish folks. So I guess they do that, but I know they did that
Well,
up in Canada as well.
interesting.
Like, they had like one night a week where all the Irish people just go and get drunk in a bar. You know, so
Epic. How has
yeah,
your relationship with home changed? Because you've been away for what? That's over 10 years. You said
I think
2011,
it's
didn't
nearly
you?
12 years. Yeah.
That's bonkers. So, like, yeah, how's your relationship with home changed in that time?
Um. Well, I mean, a lot, I guess. Like, I've been going back for the occasional wedding, um, and uh, you know, you go back and, like, you hang out with your friends as if no time has passed at all.
Hmm.
But um, I mean, it is super different. I mean, I feel like I've been away so long that I LA feels like home now. You know, so
Hmm.
I don't know.
So, when you come home for a wedding or whatever, like, what is one thing that you have to do? Like, I don't know if it's a place where you go, or it's a thing that you do, or it's, I don't know, something that you always used to do that you kind of miss. Like, do you have something like that?
Well, one thing I do really like now is, like, when we were leaving, there was no Titanic Quarter, and there's no, like, I think the Cathedral Quarter was, and maybe it was starting to happen. I can't remember. But going back and seeing, like, because we used to always go to, like, Duke of York, and the Spaniard and stuff like that. But seeing that the whole Cathedral Quarter is just this whole beast now, where like it's so many bars and restaurants, and like seeing that blow up is great, you know.
Yeah.
And so we always got to go back there. You got to go back to Duke York for a pint, and yeah, it's great to see that it's all doing so well,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Couple of stock questions that I usually wrap up each episode with. I'm going to tweak it ever so slightly. When I say tweak it slightly, I'm actually going to absolutely gut it and completely change it for you. So I don't even know why I said that. If you could make a video for anybody in the world, a silly video with somebody, who would it be that you have not yet collaborated with?
Yeah, somebody else asked me that, but it changes every day. I mean, sometimes when I'm watching something, I'm like, oh, I would love to work with that person. Um,
Mm.
but I feel like what I'm more interested in, I'm more interested in like I'm not sure how to say it, but like the old school famous people versus like
Yes.
the new. Like I'm more interested in seeing uh, uh, like somebody like totally amazing. Like imagine like being able to do a video for like Jack Nicholson or somebody like that, or like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
uh somebody like who's just been around my whole life versus like somebody you know new who's just got famous and like maybe has 10 times more followers
Mm.
than one of the old school famous people. I'm just more interested in you know uh I'd love to do something with like somebody like Will Ferrell or Paul Rudd. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
who's already like I feel like the way I think of it, like some people are sort of like more into. I feel like their vibe would suit some sort of silly video aspects versus like somebody who's a bit more serious. But
You
so
could do a
yeah,
pretty dope
I
horror one with Jack, though. That would be kind of cool.
oh wouldn't it be amazing? I literally anything. I would do anything with him. Um, so I'm trying to think who else, but
I
I
think
do
there's
think
something
some.
interesting about the classically famous people, as you put it, because particularly if they're that bit older, there kind of is a sense. I even felt like this with when I first started seeing guys like Jack Black and Will Smith on socials and on YouTube and things like that. There was kind of the sense that it's like, you guys don't belong here. Like it was like odd to see them there, on your feed, and it was extremely alluring because you're kind of like,
Mhm.
what? But you're the guy from School of
Yeah,
Rock or whatever it is.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I think it would be really interesting if you could find somebody that's like doesn't even have like an online presence, and you find a way to make them pop up on somebody's feed.
yeah.
That's
I think
super fun, I think.
it's something about. I mean, social media makes people accessible that they weren't
Yeah.
previously, and it's like right there, and you can comment, and they might even like your thing or reply to your thing. Like they're right there. You can almost touch them. But yeah, some people just aren't doing anything on social media. Like I think actually Will Ferrell and Paul Rudd are two people I've thought of that I don't think do very much on social media. I mean, they're on various other,
Sure.
they're on like SNL, social media or whatever. But like, I don't think either of them have any sort of presence. But like, they could be doing very interesting things. But I don't know. I always think about it as a way. You know how like everybody sort of like wants celebrity. Like they want to like if there's a celebrity, everyone's like, oh my god, take a photo and like selfie or whatever. Um, so everybody has this sort of appetite for celebrity in general, but it has been really um, interesting to be able to reach out to somebody famous and say, hey, I make these little videos. I'd be up for making something. Let me know, like just however I decide to reach out and say hello to them. But I, in a weird way, I have something like to offer them. So
Yeah, of course.
from nowhere, I can like not only just like get my stupid little photo, like I can in a small way like work with somebody, like literally end up with like a video I made of them, which is like mind blowing to me. Like to be able to make like 3 weeks ago to actually make a Weezer music video, like having been someone who grew up
Unbelievable, mate.
listening to Weezer, and then all of a sudden I'm in Rivers Cuomo's house and I'm making a music video after just sending like a random email to somebody. it's like this stuff blows my mind. I'm still not over that. Like I still like see this thing on my Instagram. Like I made a Weezer video.
Yeah,
You know,
man.
it's it's
But
it's mind blowing to me.
you gotta shoot your shot. You know, back to the Will Smith story at the start. Like
Hmm.
you you gotta take the opportunity, or you gotta make the opportunity in some cases too,
Yep,
don't you?
100%. I mean, I think that's a lesson. Like you just you know, with the just the idea of like or just knowing that having reached out to certain people, like some people say yes, it's a fairly low hit rate, but if you just sort of like, have certain parameters, like um, with certain, like I know the sort of person I would reach out to, the sort of person I think would sort of gel with whatever it is I'm making. So I just like keep saying hello and keep like, you know, send them a video and say, would love to work with you, something like this.
Yeah.
And I've got some interesting ones coming up soon that have said yes. So,
Awesome, mate. Well,
um,
we'll definitely be
yeah.
watching this space. Uh, Definitely plug your Instagram, and there'll be links to all of your stuff wherever you're listening to this or you're watching this. Just click the description below, and you'll be able to find Pete's Instagram and all the rest of his stuff. Final question, then. I feel like this is quite a comfy place to end. I feel like we're naturally getting there anyway.
Mhm.
If you could go back in time to an 18-year-old version of yourself, or for the 18-year-old creative listening, like what would you say to them, or what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, that question.
That
I
one.
think I think I would. I'm pretty happy with everything that's unfolded throughout the career, I suppose. Um, so I would. I think I'd always had the idea to um, emigrate to America. I had that idea that that would be amazing, but I would anything that would be sort of an encouragement to do it earlier. Um, like if I had like I'm 40 something now, but if I had been um, in America and be able to be in LA, you know, even 5 or 10 years earlier, I feel like it just would have been really beneficial just to be literally in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Um, because it's really worked out really well for me. So anything um when you're younger, you don't really trust yourself. You don't really realize that you're good at whatever. Um, so uh, everyone's always waiting for the right time. And one thing that you learn is like that's not a real thing. There's no such thing as the right time for anything. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as I have the right amount of experience or money in the bank or whatever. It just is the best time is always now or yesterday. So um, it would yes, I would be some sort of encouragement to just like do it and you know shoot your shot earlier, I guess.
Awesome. Pete, man, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
For sure, it's fun.
Yeah, super fun. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. It's so weird now doing the two. It's like I'm so committed to my listeners because that's where I kind of like I've been hanging out the last 5 years. Now all of a sudden there's these like weirdos that are watching as well. It's like, who do I address? I just need to be like more professional and just say the collective you. Or
Yep.
I remember chatting to a great guy, Peter Dixon. He's a voiceover guy from here. He does like the voice for
Mhm.
like X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, all this sort of stuff.
Oh
And
yeah.
he always he used to work in radio, and he says, you should always address the listeners as a listener. It should always be singular because it's usually just a single person who is listening. So thank you, individual, for listening or watching to this.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you so much to NI Connections for making this one possible. Like I said, if you'd like to check out other episode in the series where we interview people from Northern Ireland who are living all over the world, doing all sorts of incredible stuff, just like the main man, Peter Quinn here, you can head to their website, niconnections.com. If you're thinking about, here comes a cough. If you're thinking about coming home and you live overseas, NI Connections is an incredible place. It's the first point of call we should check out. They've got lots of great information on there. Or if you live overseas and you're looking to find a bunch of Irish people, a bunch of people from Northern Ireland to get together with, they also have some really interesting diaspora communities that you can plug into as well. So, we love Northern Ireland. We're all about celebrating Northern Ireland. We think people from Northern Ireland are incredible and have the potential to go off and do just about anything. So, It's good to get connected up. And Pete, it was an absolute pleasure to connect with you today. So thank you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much.
That's a wrap.